Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our 2023 Career Fair, Women in 3D Printing Career Fair. We're really happy to have you. Today we have 13 hiring companies participating, so there's a lot of opportunities out there. Just to kick things off, I'll give you a bit overview on the agenda, and then we'll just get right into things. So first things first, we're going to start with getting ready for the AM job and talent market in 2023 with Alexander Daniels Global. After that, we will jump to a quick announcement from the Barnes Group about some scholarships that they're announcing. We'll then go into a short video that is an introduction to all of the different hiring companies. Some hiring companies have done an introduction to the company. Some have done introduction to the actual specific opportunities they have open, and some have both. And then at the end of that video, we will break back into the networking, which is where you can talk directly with the hiring managers. The hiring companies are on 2 floors, so there's 3 floors for the career fair. You can see right here above you, that's how you get to the different floors when we're back into the networking stage. So the hiring companies are on floors 1 and 2. You want to join them to hear what they have to say, and then if you want to have private conversations, you can break off into the 2-person tables. I've also created some polls to find out what people are thinking with regards to the job market. So if you click down in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, it will open up a box on the right-hand side. You'll see the chat, you'll see the participants list, you'll see the Q&A, which I encourage you to use during Alexander Daniels Global presentation. And then you'll see on the polls on the far right, and all polls of those, they're open and ongoing. So place your vote in there, and we will, at the end of the video, I'll announce what everyone's answers are. Looks like we've got quite a few happening right now. So I'm excited to see what people have to say. And I know the hiring companies are interested as well. So to kick things off, let's get right to it. We have, as I said, getting ready for the additive manufacturing job and talent market in 2023. We have Nick Pierce from Alexander Daniels Global. So Nick, you want to go ahead and turn your camera and mic on?
Hi, everybody. Hoping you can all hear me and see me now. New to this technology. Thank you, Kristin, for the introduction.
Yeah, you're perfect. So, I'll let you share your slides and I'll disappear.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna work out how to do this now. Share the slides. Share. Here we go. Okay. No. So I'm assuming everybody can see this now on my screen, and hopefully we'll get through this okay. So let's start. Quick introduction to myself. So I'm Nick Pierce. I'm the founder and director of Alexander Daniels Global. A quick short story for those of you that don't know me. Set Alexander Daniels Global up a little over 7 years ago now. Saw the transformative capability of additive manufacturing applied to medical, was really blown away by this technology, and not being an engineer myself, fascinated and wanted to learn more. So I took, at the time, the Deloitte massive open online course in 3D printing to find out more about the technology. Found out a lot about the challenges the technology faced at the time around adoption, such as speed, repeatability, availability of materials, but almost all of the companies I spoke to discussed challenges with hiring, and in particular finding the right talent in order to help them grow their businesses. And coming from a recruitment background and having set up several recruitment companies in the past, that's the role that I felt I could play within this industry. So we founded Alexander Daniels Global with a belief that additive manufacturing would change people's lives. And we've made it our mission over the last 7 years to enable that revolution in additive manufacturing through talent. So in practice, what that means is we support professionals who are looking to develop their career within the industry, and we support organizations across the full value chain of the industry, whether they be machine OEMs, material companies, software companies, all those businesses that adopt that combination of technology to produce parts. we help them to identify the great talent that they need to succeed and grow their company. But today's presentation, what I'm going to talk about is, really the talent market in 2023, and using some of the data that we've collected from our recent global salary survey, as well as other sources, talk about how talent can get ready for the AM job market, looking at it predominantly from the talent's perspective, but also from the employer's perspective as well, and providing some insights around what it will be like to find a job or find great talent this year, and what hints and tips might we offer in doing that. So some of the things that we'll cover is the market growth, what's in demand, what are employers really looking for, the kind of hot skills, hot jobs, if you will, how candidates can upskill and prepare for the job market, and really what's going on in salaries at the moment, because it is, a volatile market that we find ourselves in. Hopefully, we'll have some time for questions at the end, and I'd actively encourage anybody to hang around and ask any questions that they've got, and I'll do my best to answer those when we get there. So let's get into the content now. So one of the things that I think was really interesting was, over the past couple of years, we've seen huge turnover within the industry. And what I mean by turnover is lots of movement. So, if I go back a couple of years, one of the questions that we ask in the salary survey is how likely people are to change jobs. So we had a statistic that suggested that 33% of people were likely or extremely likely to change jobs. This came off the back of our 2021 report, and actually what we saw was that through 2021 and therefore reported in our 2022 report, was that at an industry-wide turnover, we saw about 33% of people change companies through that year. That's a big proportion of the workforce changing jobs. So we've measured that again, and what we saw last year in 2022 is that number decreased significantly, to 21.2%. Now, if we look at that in the context of what happened during the year, through the start of the year, there was a talent and still lots of people looking for jobs. But as we entered the sort of second half of the year, we started to see, layoffs, for example, from some of the major players in the industry, like Desktop Metal, Carbon, to name a couple. And as a result of that, I think that then impacted the number of people that were changing jobs. What we also saw, and again, this was kind of post-COVID, that, in sort of 2020, 2021, not many new entrants came into the industry. So we had this huge boom in demand, in the back half of 2021 and throughout the first half of 2022 for talent, which wasn't matched by the number of new talent coming into the industry. But obviously, where there's demand, supply quickly comes to fill that. And actually, through 2022, as reported in our 23 report, we saw significant growth in the number of new talent coming into the industry. And this talent started to enter the industry from other industrial markets, as well as new graduate talent coming into the industry. So, what we started to see there was a sort of softening, shall we say, in the ratio between the number of candidates who are in the industry to the number of jobs that are being advertised. And here we can see that the number of candidates to jobs increased from 16 to 1 in our 2022 report to 21 to 1 in the 2023 report. And I think that will become important, as we move through these slides, to consider, well, what does that mean for talent who are looking for a job? And what does that mean for companies? And there are some additional statistics that I'm going to come on to now, which will, help explain that. And as we go through the presentation, we'll look at what does that mean, and what sort of impacts that likely to have on the talent market as a whole. But let's just have a little look at what's in demand. Now, while we saw, as I said, layoffs through, the back half of 2022, we don't expect hiring to slow down completely. And in fact, 40% of companies that responded to our survey are looking to hire between 4 and 20 new people to their team throughout this year. So there is still demand out there. And while we might see, as we'll come on to later, a drop off in, the number of jobs being advertised, there is still demand for good talent. And those roles that we see in high demand, as listed by the respondents to our survey, R&D roles, sales roles, and software in particular are in high demand. And if we look at R&D, I mean, that's a bit of a catch-all term, but cuts across a number of disciplines within additive manufacturing. That can be on the machine OEM side, mechanical, electrical, design engineers. On the software side, that can be systems engineers, controls engineers, for example. We see high demand for these sorts of roles and profiles. What's probably surprising to many people is that still sales remains an in-demand job, where actually a lot of the layoffs that we saw through last year were in sales and marketing. Actually we still see high demand for roles that are sales focused, whether that be direct sales, which is increasingly becoming the sort of method through which certainly the machine OEMs are looking to target customers, but also we see and continually see high demand for technical pre-sales type professionals as well. Applications engineers, pre-sales applications engineers, these types of profiles that have a technical appreciation, maybe a strong design background, materials background, mechanical background, but who combine that with an ability to talk commercially to customers. These types of roles remain in quite high demand, and we see, as 2023 progresses, those trends continuing. As we move on to the next slide, as you said, we see, hiring may potentially slow down, but still, there is demand. We need to align, well, what do employers offer versus what do employees want? And I think for the first time, we see an alignment between the most valued benefits of employees and the most commonly offered benefits by employers, that being flexible working hours and the ability to work from home. Pre-pandemic, this certainly wouldn't have been one of the number one criteria with which an employee would decide whether to join a company. But I think post-pandemic, the kind of change in lifestyle that predicated, has led to an increased importance on flexible working amongst a lot of professionals. And it's something that's really easy to offer now that we have technology like Microsoft Teams, for example, to enable that. I think one thing to take into account is whether that's relevant, relevant for the employer and relevant for the employee. I think it would be difficult if you're working, for example, as a mechanical engineer or a design engineer in a complex R&D role, to be working from home. Now, while you might enjoy flexibility of working hours, you certainly can't be working on, really expensive machines at home. And while I do know of some companies who've sent, desktop 3D printers home with design engineers to allow them to continue to work from home, we certainly haven't sort of seen an ability for, certainly the more technical roles that are based on, R&D, or indeed to a certain extent, the more hands-on controls or software-based roles being able to be done remotely at this stage. So I think when considering this, both employers and employees need to consider, is it relevant, basically, when trying to align the benefits that they offer to what employees are looking for going forward. One of the other topics that also came up in our survey is that professionals highlight that one of the biggest motivators for changing jobs is career progression. And now I think what's interesting is only the second highest motivator. I think in the past we've seen that as the number one motivator for changing jobs. And actually we'll come on to talk a little bit about what the number one is slightly later on. And in doing that career progression, I think it's important to put a little bit of context around this when considering employers who might want to retain staff. Offering them courses that can help them to upskill is a good way to retain the professionals that you've got. But equally, courses are a way for professionals in the industry to upskill and secure potentially opportunities to progress their career. Now, there are lots of different courses out there and available to talent who want to upskill. I think it's really important to think about and think carefully about, how do I want to develop? How will taking this course enhance and develop my skill set and therefore my career? And also to think, well, what do employers want? And what I can sort of say of our experience is that while there's a lot of courses out there that offer very good theoretical exposure to additive manufacturing, for entry level talent, that might be the way to go to give you a base level of understanding. But certainly most of the businesses that we talk to, for most of the roles that we would work on, require perhaps a little bit more practical and hands-on experience. I think what we also see is that software is in high demand as well. So there are lots of courses out there as well around topology optimization and design, for example. And I think these are obviously very good courses for people that want to build that skill set into their experience, because I think that, again, that's something that's in high demand. Now, we highlighted earlier, R&D, sales and software. On the sort of R&D side, there's no substitute for practical experience. So, rather than considering a course, depending on where you're at in your career, something that's more practical, hands-on, maybe considering masters or PhD programs that give you opportunities to work directly with machines and technology, could be a better route to take in terms of upskilling and therefore preparing you more for the jobs market in that sense. Now, in terms of the market conditions, I think this is a really interesting slide. We talked earlier about the reduction in the number of jobs being advertised, despite the fact that, as I said, over 40% of the companies that were surveyed are going to hire between 4 and 20 people. We definitely saw towards the back end of last year a reduction in the number of jobs being advertised across EMEA and North America, as much as 57.7% decrease in the number of jobs being advertised. So, on the one hand, we might think that, demand is dropping. On the other hand, given that we saw lots of layoffs and a lot of uncertainty in the market, we've now got this influx of talent into the market. Perhaps now it's a great time for employers to hire staff. I think actually there's a counter argument to that, and certainly one data point that I think is really important here is that when we survey candidates, we ask them how likely they are to change jobs. Now, where we said earlier that over 30% were extremely likely or likely to change jobs, at the end of 2021, and then that statistic sort of played out. Actually, now what we see is there's a significant increase in the number of people who are unlikely or extremely unlikely to change jobs in 2023. This is driven by security. Everybody's been affected by the rising cost of living. And I think that now people who are secure in jobs probably value stability. And it's always a case, at least in people's minds, that if I'm the last one in, I might be the first one out. And therefore, where there's lots of restructuring going on, the security and stability of an existing employer probably plays a little bit more weight than a new employer. where there's perhaps a little bit more risk as the new person that hasn't proven themselves yet. So, actually what I see happening in the market this year is it becoming increasingly difficult for employers to prize away the best talent from organizations as a result of this desire for security and stability driven by increases in cost of living and some uncertainty around the future of the global market. Um, and as we sort of see, by this sort of final statistic, most people are relatively happy with how they're paid within the industry as well. So based on that, there's no overarching need for them to move jobs at this point, and therefore, as I sort of said at the start of this slide, I think we will see a tightening of the market for employers looking to hire talent as the year progresses. Certainly those people who've been displaced in the last sort of 6 months, they'll be snapped up by employers in the early part of the year, and then in the latter half of the year it will become more difficult to hire good talent. So what has that meant for salaries? Well, as we can sort of see by the statistic, we still saw, certainly in North America and Canada, growth of salaries in 2022, with the 12.6% growth compared to 9% growth in 2021 versus the 13% decrease we saw in the pandemic year of 2020. Probably the biggest anomaly that we see here is the minus 2.5% on salaries in Europe. But I think this is reflective partly of the fact that now our survey is 6 years old. We're collecting a lot more data points. And as a result of that, we're now collecting much broader data from across EMEA, where we would include within this, salaries in lower cost countries. I think what we've also seen within EMEA is that, in some areas there has still been growth in salaries like sales, but in other areas salaries have remained reasonably flat. I think as we look deeper into the data, and these results are broad in the sense that these capture the average salaries across North America and Canada, EMEA, APAC. EMEA is a very big area. There's huge differences between salaries in the UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Poland, for example. And if we look deeper into the data, at a UK level, we've seen generally increase in salaries across the board, likewise in Germany, likewise in Spain, likewise in Italy. But when we add all of that data together, and we combine the Italian and the Spanish data with the German and the French and the Polish and the English data, that comes out at an average of a sort of decrease. But at an individual level, I think we still see generally increases in salary, albeit probably only marginal and not very high. In that sense, I think what's interesting and from an employer standpoint, what's important to consider here is that just because we perceive a market where there's perhaps more talent, fewer jobs, salary is definitely not something to sort of consider, well, maybe now's the time to pay less. And I think for employees, what we see is that salary is now the number one reason for them to change jobs. I think, as we sort of saw earlier, salary competitiveness for the AM industry is relatively on par now with similar industries. But, we are seeing now that talent is leaving additive to move into, other digital manufacturing industries like robotics, for example. And we are also seeing talent coming into the industry from other digital manufacturing industries as well. So I think organizations need to be mindful of that and ensure that salaries are fair and do reflect the market. I mean, just before I sort of wrap up, I mean, I think, what does 2023 hold? We see a lot of uncertainty in the market. We certainly see a little bit of drop off in demand from, hiring companies, but in some pockets, it's still really, really talent short. And therefore, for employers, ensuring that salaries remain competitive and ensuring that the offer is, competitive at a market level is important. I think for talent, salary is now the number one, according to our survey, the number one motivator for changing jobs. If you're relatively happy where you are, you see good career progression, as an employer looking to recruit the best people, the one thing that perhaps will get people's
There, looks like we might have lost Nick for a minute. Nick, are you still there? I don't know what happened to him. Just give me a second to try to figure out. All right, looks like we might have lost Nick for a bit. Hopefully he'll be able to come back and join us here. In the meantime, I might have, if Ali from the Barnes Group is available, I think we might bring you up just to do your quick announcement, and then we can always bring Nick back to finish up his presentation and answer any questions that you have. Ali, I believe you're up on stage. If you want to go ahead and turn your camera on. There you are. Sorry about that. I hope you're ready. Is now as good a time as ever?
Yes, it is. Okay. Let me just share my screen here.
Let me know when you want to play that video that I have, okay?
Okay, I have it in my presentation, so it might work. If not, yeah, I can have
Oh, Nick is back.
I'm back. I'm not sure what happened. You kicked me out.
You disappeared. Okay, Nick, let's try to wrap up and finish your presentation, and then we'll bring Ali back up, if that's okay with you, Ali?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Go ahead and turn your camera mic off, and then Nick will. Do you have any other slides still left to share?
I think that was it. I think I was on the final slide, wasn't I? The Q&A.
You were.
So it kind of kicked me out at the right time, maybe.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's any
personal.
questions. Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions that have come up. Maybe we could go through those.
Yes, there are some questions. So we'll start at the top here. You mentioned companies wanting people with a hybrid sales/technical background. In searching for jobs, what keywords would you recommend searching for?
If you're looking for that type of role, I think you would be looking for applications engineer, pre-sales engineer, technical applications engineer, additive manufacturing engineer, as far as job titles are concerned. And then in terms of keywords around that, I would include things like design for additive manufacturing, DFAM, benchmarking or parts benchmarking, application engineering. These sorts of keywords, I would say, are probably the ones that are going to bring those sorts of roles up when you're searching for jobs.
I can definitely say from personal experience, personally, and in many conversations I've had, that application engineers right now are hot commodity. So
definitely,
yeah. Okay, next up, what about non-sales, non-technical opportunities in AM in 2023?
And I mean, non-sales, non-technical type roles. I mean, I think probably one of the things that we see in high demand, and in fact, one of the most interesting stats that we saw, and again, this comes through in the report, is marketing. We've seen an increasing salaries across marketing, and certainly lately a bit of increase in demand on the marketing side, and I think that cuts across all areas of marketing. So closer to the product from a product management standpoint, product marketing, as well as then what we might consider the more traditional marketing around sort of content, digital, strategic marketing sort of stuff. So I think that's probably one area that we sort of see a growth. It's still an industry that's driven by innovation, and therefore the main roles that we see are more technical or sales. And I remember one client I spoke to, former president of one of the leading businesses in the industry, said, if you don't make something or sell something, then you shouldn't be in the room. And I think the industry is still a little bit there. Now, while the infrastructure that supports that on the operations side, the HR side, these are all really important, they're probably not as in demand as far as roles are concerned as those people that make stuff and sell stuff.
Well, and I would think as well, things like, I was trying to think about what are non-sales, non-technical things, like maybe like finance and things like that. Those kind of translate across industries a lot better than the technical and sales type roles. Those are people more internal to the industry, and finance people can pretty much come from almost anywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to recruit accountants. I spent 10 years doing that before coming into 3D printing. So, you could move quite seamlessly between different sectors in accountancy. Okay, maybe it helps if you have a manufacturing or industrial background, but, like you said, they are more, sort of intertwined and can move around more easily.
Okay. We must have a bunch of students in the audience because we have 5 votes for what advice would you give a student trying to enter the industry?
So I think it depends. If you're coming from a technical background, maybe mechanical, electrical engineering, I think there are roles out there for students that have that kind of background already, entry-level roles in machine OEMs, for example, or material companies. I think if you're not coming from a sort of more technical background and therefore needing to upskill, my advice would be start with an entry-level course. I personally advocate the Deloitte Massive Open Online course in 3D printing as you want to understand the basics, you want to understand all the different technologies, and then if you want to extend from there, then I would go into something depending on what your interest is. So if you want to go into something that's more design focused, go into a course that gives you more design led opportunities. If you want to do something that's more software focused, again, there's lots of programming courses out there that you could take as well that could support you getting into the industry. As I said during the presentation, though, I think it's important, and certainly what we hear from a lot of hiring companies, practical experience, that there isn't a substitute for that. So it's going to be very difficult to walk into an applications engineering role or an R&D role without some practical experience, and that's perhaps where there's a little bit of a gap in the courses that are offered. There's certainly some very good theoretical knowledge that can be gained from courses, but that's not a substitute for the practical experience that you might gain actually working in the industry. So I think that's probably what I would say.
Great. One other thing is internships. I know, like, for example, Lego is one of the hiring companies, and I've seen a lot of internships. Is there any special way to find internships? I know I struggled with that when I was getting out of college. I wanted an internship, but I didn't know where to look for them.
I think now you will see companies advertising internships. You'll see them advertising internships on places like LinkedIn or other job boards. But if you're interested in internships, go directly to the company website. They will definitely have them on the company website. If you can't find them on the company website, then what you will always find on most companies' websites is a speculative application where maybe it's an email or something like that will go directly to a hiring manager or an HR manager or something in that organization. Maybe it sounds a little bit old school, but a really good covering letter that explains why you would love to work for that company, what experience you've got, that really highlights your passion and your enthusiasm for additive and for that business in particular, and what type of role you're looking for. I think that will really work wonders in terms of perhaps opening the door to an internship. And actually, I've got one client in Berlin that we've done a lot of recruitment for over the last 12 months who actively hire interns. And actually, I know that 2 of the interns they've now hired full time and they've progressed phenomenally in a short space of time. So it can be a really, really great way in, definitely.
I want to second the cover letter comment, because I've been hiring recently, and I can't believe how the cover letters kind of disappeared as a thing. And I've talked to other people, and a couple of the hiring companies in the audience here, actually, specifically, we've all commented on this lack of cover letter. And so when a cover letter does come through, it's huge, and you pay super special attention to it. So it's really worth the effort putting that in, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the industry is still, one of the things I love about the industry is the passion. Like, everyone you talk to's got a story like mine. Everyone you talk to is really, really passionate about the technology. You can't convey that passion in a CV alone. Now, when you work with a recruiter like us, we see it, we hear it, because we're talking to you, and then we almost put your cover letter together for you, because we create that synopsis and we send that to the client alongside your CV. But if you're not working with a recruiter like us to do that, then the only way you can really convey that passion and that enthusiasm is a cover letter. So yeah, I definitely
with sincere wording as well, you know.
Yeah.
Just because the easy apply button is there doesn't mean that you should use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, we have time for probably one more. Any advice for someone transitioning from another industry into this one? I think is a great question. I think there's probably a lot of people in this position.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in the last sort of couple of years, what was really interesting when I went to Formnext this year, talking to a lot of companies, they were saying, we've got to stop talking about additive manufacturing, right? We've got to start talking about production. And I think that when we look at people coming into the industry now, increasingly, we are being asked by clients to find people from other industries and bring them in, because we don't want to always do things the way that we've done before. So, you know, if you're looking to come into additive manufacturing, actually, the experience that you've got could be valid. In some respects, I want to say you don't need to do anything special, because actually I think this industry needs to bring people in from other industries. What's really, really important to consider is what about your experience could be useful. So we look at the vertical markets that additive manufacturing wants to target. So what experience have you got working with automotive, aerospace, medical, defense, space, for example? These industry verticals are really important. So if you can highlight experience in similar industry verticals, that would be critical, I would think, and would certainly support anyone looking to come in. But also the transferable skills that you've got that might align. You know, it's evident for sales if you've sold into the same customers. On the mechanical, electrical R&D side, you know, have you worked with industrial machinery that might be similar, so you can transfer these skills across? You know, representing that is important. And if it's not so straightforward in terms of the alignment of your skills to roles, then I would say simply, you know, making sure that when you're applying to roles that you can demonstrate, as we just talked about, that passion, that interest, that enthusiasm somehow to make that change.
Great. So there's a ton of questions in here, but we don't have time to get to them. But I do see, hopefully you can stick around maybe a little bit. I see Sophie's in the audience. I see Jen's in the audience. Maybe between you, if you could take a look at the Q&A and put answers to as many of those questions as you can in the chat, I think that would be really helpful for a lot of people. We have a quick announcement right now from the Barnes Group, and then we're going to go into the hiring company videos. So I think those will go well together. While you're watching the videos, you can also keep an eye on the chat for the answers to all of your questions. So thanks, Nick. Really appreciate you taking the time. And we'll see you in the chat.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Allie, if you want to come back up, we can, hopefully you're still, yep, you're still there.
Hello.
Great. All right, so I will play that video for you because I think it'll play better that way. The sound comes through better, but just let me know when you're ready for it.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Let me get this up for you. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Kunkel with the Barnes Global Advisors. I'm going to hop in a little bit about what we do and then get to the exciting opportunity that we're providing to everybody here today. So we are a strategic consulting group, and our mission is to accelerate the adoption and industrialization of additive and advanced manufacturing. And we do this through our 3 pillars. So we have advising, training, and media. I'm going to dive in a little bit about the training. We have several options available, from tailored learning to team-based learning and then individual learning. And the individual learning is what the exciting opportunity is about today. It's through Purdue University. We have a partnership with them, and it gives you a basic overview and understanding of the additive technologies. But here's where the video comes into play. So Kristen, I don't know if you want to play that now. This was a previous TIPE participant. She took the scholarship last year. These are just all right, thank you. So with that, we at the Barnes Global Advisors are excited to announce that we will be awarding 5 of these additive manufacturing scholarships to 5 lucky winners. To enter to win, just visit barnesglobaladvisors.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Cynthia. We'll be on floor 3. We're a gold sponsorship of the event today. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. The winners will be chosen March 1st.
Great. Thanks, Allie. All right, moving on. We got a 30-minute video, but it's a video that compiles a lot of short little segments. So there's going to be a 3-minute maximum per hiring company. As I said earlier, it'll be either an introduction to the company in general, introduction to the roles that are currently available, or a combination of both. So I'll play that now. And then after the video, we will be breaking for the networking. Right, so that's all the companies that we have that have tables to meet with you all here in the networking. There are a few people wandering around as well that don't have tables, I know. So keep your eyes peeled. My thoughts is I get asked a lot in terms of, best practices in terms of networking. Just try to have fun, try to talk to everybody out there. I think this is the one case where having a laser focus is maybe not the best way to approach things. You need to have a conversation as many people, find common interests. A friend of a friend of a friend is the kind of person that's going to probably find you the best job down the line. Just go out and talk to everyone out there on the floor. We've got 90 minutes, or a little over 90 minutes at this time, that will keep the floor open, or if people trickle out, we'll close it earlier. But last year we had people around for about an hour and a half. That's it. Enjoy yourselves. All the hiring companies are on floors 1 and 2. So don't forget to check out floor 2. You can see right here the floors you can get to. Once we get back to the networking floor, a directory of the hiring companies is also along the side of the screen. I believe it's on the right side when we get back to the networking. All right, have fun.